seconds, starting off with shoulder rolls. And there's a nice easy motion. You're just going to be shrugging those shoulders up towards those ears, rolling them forward, let them relax down, back to the center in line with your chest, and then roll them back up the opposite direction, back around behind you. Nice tight squeeze behind you and nice tight squeeze in front, as well as squeezing them up towards those ears. Just try to get a nice full range of motion, warming up those trapezius muscles through that neck. Now we're going to be moving on to an arm cross swing next, just a couple seconds. And switch it. Those arms just come right in front of that chest. Bring them one over top of the other as they cross over top of each other, trying to get them across your chest as much as you can, and then stretching them back behind you as far as is comfortable. Now start with a slow swing, and then start speeding that motion up. Just don't push too hard with this. You don't want to let those joints go loose. You don't want to pull anything, so keep those shoulder joints constantly contracted, nice and tight. Got just a few seconds left. We're moving to a torso circle next. And switch it, nice big circular motion with that torso. You can go down towards those feet, in between those feet, back up across, pause at the top, and then back down again. Nice big full circle, trying to keep that back nice and straight. We're trying to warm up those hips a little bit, as well as starting getting those core muscles nice and warm from having to hold that back nice and straight. Just keep alternating back and forth, keep those lungs open, trying to get as much range of motion out of this as you can. And we're moving on to torso twist next. And switch it, just rotating those shoulders left to right. Start off really nice and slow with a short range of motion. Then you're going to start slowly increasing that range of motion as those muscles start to warm up, as you start getting more control over that motion, as it becomes more comfortable to you. By the time you're done with this, you want to try to be rotating left to right as far as you possibly can, keeping those hips relatively stationary. They're going to rock back and forth on you a little bit, but try to really focus on getting most of that twist just from that torso. Now we've got a few seconds left until we switch to a high knee march. It's a nice slow motion, just driving those knees up. Start with a limited range of motion again at first, then start working into more and more of a range of motion, bringing that knee up higher than that hip height if you can, trying to really warm up that hip flexor, trying to open up that hip joint, as well as warming up those calf muscles. Just keep this motion going, nice and slow under control, keep those lungs open, and again, try to start increasing that range of motion on that knee as you can. Now we're almost done, just a few seconds left. We're moving off to a boxer shuffle next. Go ahead and switch it off, moving those feet nice and quick, just barely letting the ball of that foot touch the ground before you're shifting your weight back over onto the other leg. So start relatively slow again, start speeding that motion up as you get towards the end of this. This is our last exercise, so really try to get that sweat going, so really push yourself on this. Keep those lungs open and try to stay up on the ball of that foot as best you can. Just have about 5 seconds left. Keep it going just a little bit longer. And go ahead and let it relax. All right, let's go ahead and get ready for our full cardio routine. We're doing 10 different intervals, a different exercise for each one, 50 seconds each with a little bit of rest in between. We're starting off with a plank touchdown. So go ahead and drop down on the ground into that push-up position. Let's go ahead and get ready. And start them up. Come up into that full plank position off those hands and toes. Try to keep those hips, that upper body in almost a perfectly stationary position, dropping those knees down, barely tapping them to the ground, then pulling them right back up. It's going to make those legs have to work a lot harder than a traditional plank, but you're also going to get a little tiny bit of a rest on those abdominal muscles. So you actually have a little bit of best of both worlds. Make those legs work a little bit harder, but not have to work those abs quite as much. It's still going to be difficult, but it's going to make it just a little bit different motion than a traditional plank. Just keep those lungs open. Now make sure that when you come up into that full plank position with those legs nice and straight, you're keeping a straight line from your shoulder down to your ankle, so you're keeping those hips nice and low. Don't let those hips droop down, and don't let those hips kick up too high in the air. You want to keep them almost perfectly stationary. Just got a few more seconds to go. 3, 2, 1, and go ahead and let it relax. We're going to be moving on to our next exercise, which is going to be a double dip squat with a ventral raise. So you're going to be dropping down, holding that squat, pulsing twice with those arms straight out in front. Let's go ahead and get ready. And start up. Nice deep squat. Make sure your weight is staying back in those heels. You're trying to mimic the angle of your shins off of your chest, making sure that those arms come straight out up in front of that chest, shoulder height. Get a nice pulse at the bottom, and then coming right back up to a full extension, and then go right back down again. Try not to hold any pause at the top of that range of motion. You don't want to give yourself any rest at the top. You want to always keep those muscles engaged. Just keep that motion going, keep those lungs open, keep that form nice and clean. Make sure you're keeping a nice even pace. We have just about 20 seconds left. And we're almost done. Just about 5 seconds left. Enough for one more repetition. And go ahead and let it relax. Nicely done. Let's go ahead and move on to our next exercise, which is going to be a reverse lunge plus a curl and a press. Now you can do this with dumbbells if you want to make it a little bit harder. Otherwise, arm weight is perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and get ready. And start up. Lunge backwards. Curl those hands up at the same time as you lunge. And then when you drop down to that lunge, you're going to pause it. Extend those arms straight over top of your head in a press motion. And then as soon as you drop those arms back down, then you can come back up from that lunge. So make sure you don't come up from that lunge until you've dropped your arms back down. And then as soon as you come up from that lunge, those arms are going to come back down from that curl position. Now once you come up to that full standing position again with those arms hanging down by your sides, you're going to extend the opposite leg back that you did the time before and do that same exact motion again with those arms. Just keep it going, nice even pace. Make sure that you pause at the bottom for that shoulder press. Now, anytime you're doing an exercise like this where you're just using body weight, make sure that you're keeping everything nice and contracted to get the most calorie burn out as possible. Got just a few seconds left. And go ahead and let it relax. Nicely done. Let's go ahead and move on to our next exercise, which is going to be a walk down push-up plus a back bow. Let's go ahead and get ready. And start up. Drop down like you're doing a toe touch, then walk out with those hands into a plank position. Do your push-up, but go completely flat against the ground. Do a full back bow. Come back up to that push-up position, and then walk those hands up back to a standing position. This takes a little bit of effort to get done. It's not an easy motion, but it's definitely nice and low impact, and it's definitely going to work on building those shoulder muscles as well as those chest muscles. It's also going to hit that lower back and those glutes and hamstrings. So it hits a lot of that body while you're doing this exercise. So make sure you try to push through it as best you can, keeping that form as clean as possible. And we've got just a few more seconds to go. Keep trying to go through that form as best you can. Get that full range of motion. And let it relax. Nicely done. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next exercise, which is going to be a bent over reach and fly. So you're going to be doing this standing up. So go ahead and stand up for this next one. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. Keeping a nice flat back. You're going to hinge only from that hip joint. Tip straight forward until that chest is parallel to the ground. Those arms are going to come straight up in front of those shoulders. Then back down in front of that chest. Then out to the sides from those shoulders. Back down in front of that chest again. Just keep alternating back and forth between those two positions. Again, if you want to use weight for this, feel free to do that. Otherwise, contracting those muscles and working them against themselves will be plenty of a workout. So don't worry about using weights if you don't have them. Just make sure you keep everything nice and contracted, especially that lower back, those obliques and those core muscles. Make sure those legs stay nice and tight as well. Don't lock your knee out completely. You want to have just a slight bend in that knee. And we've got just a few more seconds to go. 5 seconds left. And go ahead and let it relax. Nicely done. Let's go ahead and move on to our next exercise, which is going to be a squat plus a rotation. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. Arms up in front of that chest. Squat down nice and deep. When you come back up from that squat, you're going to rotate those shoulders. Bring one hand back behind you, pointing the opposite direction from the other arm. Then come back forward. Another nice deep squat. And then bring that opposite arm back. Just make sure you alternate which arm you bring back every single time. With that squat, you want to keep those arms in front of your chest, shoulder height, squatting down nice and low as you can control, making sure your weight stays in your heels, trying to, again, mimic the angle of your shin to the angle of your chest to make sure you have a really nice clean form on that squat. Just keep that motion going, keep those lungs open at a nice even pace. And we are almost done, just about 5 seconds left to go. Try to get a few more repetitions in. And let it relax. All right, let's go and move on to our next exercise, which is going to be a crisscross knee pull. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. Those hands start above your head. As you bring one knee up, you're going to bring those elbows down to that knee. Extend those arms up over your head again as that leg drops, and then bring that opposite leg up. The same exact motion, just keep alternating back and forth. Get a nice tight squeeze on those abdominal muscles as you kind of crunch those shoulders forward just a little bit. Make sure you're really pulling that knee up as high as you possibly can, and that you're working against yourself with those arm muscles. So you're not just kind of swinging those arm muscles around. You want to actually keep those biceps and tricep muscles contracted really nice and tight. So you're working against yourself as well as those lats and those shoulders, so they're working against themselves. Make sure everything through that upper body is contracted nice and tight. You'll get a lot more of a calorie burn out of it and a lot more toning. We're almost done, just a few more seconds to go. Just keep that motion under control and let it relax. Nicely done. Let's go ahead and move on to our next exercise, which is going to be a walk down push-up. Go ahead and get ready. And start them up. Now this is exactly like that walk down push-up with the back bow we did earlier, but instead of doing that back bow, you're just going to do that push-up. So you're not going to lay down flat on the ground. You're just going to drop down into that push-up position, do that push-up, and then walk right back up again. It's just a little bit harder for those shoulders because you don't have any of that rest dropping down onto your stomach. Just keep that motion going. Try to keep those legs as straight as you can, walking back and forth. Makes it a lot harder to keep those legs straight. If you let those knees bend, then it's going to be a lot easier for those shoulders. So if it's a little bit too hard for you this way, then that's an option to make it a little bit easier. Just keep that motion going. Make sure every single time you drop out to that push-up position, you're doing a nice full push-up off of those hands and toes. If you have to, you can always drop onto those knees to make it a little bit easier. Just keep that motion going. You got about 5 seconds left. And let it relax. All right, let's go and move on to our next exercise, which is going to be a toe touch kick. Let's go ahead and get ready. And start up. Standing up nice and straight and tall. Those arms start above your head. You're going to bring them straight down as you bring one leg up. Keep it perfectly straight. Reaching down towards those toes, getting a crunch motion with those abs, and then drop that leg as those arms come back over top of your head. Do the same exact motion with the opposite leg. So just keep alternating those legs back and forth. Make sure you're keeping that leg as straight as you can to get a stretch on that hamstring. Make that hip flexor have to work really nice and hard. Make those abdominal muscles have to work really nice and hard. And then reach down with those hands down towards that foot, making sure that shoulder muscle stays nice and tight, constantly working those muscles against themselves. The harder you work against yourself, the more calorie burn you're going to get out of this. So keep focusing on keeping those muscles nice and tight. You've got just a few seconds left, so keep pushing it. Keep those lungs open. You've got 5 seconds left. And let it relax. Good job. All right, let's go and move on to the next exercise, which is going to be a squat and reach. Let's go ahead and get ready. And start up. Nice deep squat in the middle. As you come up from that squat, one arm goes up across, reaching away from the direction you're turning, then squat back down, then the same thing up to the other side. Just keep alternating back and forth. Nice full rotation on those shoulders as well as those hips. Try to get as much range of motion out of this as you possibly can, getting a really nice high, tight reach as you reach that hand away from you, and getting a really nice low, deep squat. Just keep those lungs open. This is your last exercise of this first round, so try to make sure you're really pushing yourself on this one. Make sure you're nice and tired, that heart rate's nice and high by the time you're done. Now I've got just a few seconds left. Keep it going. Keep all those muscles nice and tight. We're almost done. And let it relax. Nicely done. All right, you hit your first water break. So if you need to, go ahead and pause. Take a little bit longer break. Otherwise, you got 30 seconds until we start back into round number 2. All right, our water break is almost over, so let's go ahead and move back, get ready to start back over again with our plank touchdowns. Let's go ahead and get ready. And start them up. Now you know how to do these. Drop out into that full plank position. Bring those knees up off the ground, barely tap into the ground, then pull them right back up again. Just make sure you keep those hips nice and low. Keep those lungs open and make sure all those muscles stay nice and tight to get as much calorie burn out of this as possible. You've got just under 40 seconds left. Just 10 seconds left. Keep it going. Try to keep those hips nice and low. Push through the pain. I know those muscles are really nice and tired by this point. Keep those abs nice and tight. And let it relax. Nicely done. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next exercise. We're going to be doing that double dip squat with a ventral raise next. Let's go ahead and get ready. And start it up. Nice deep squat. As you drop down, those arms will come up in front of that chest, right about shoulder height. Then drop those arms back down as you come back up from that squat. Make sure you pulse twice at the bottom, so nice low pulse. Then come right back up again. Try to make sure that back stays perfectly flat, trying to mimic that angle of your shins off that chest. Just keep that motion going. Keep those lungs open. We've got under 30 seconds left. Almost done. Just 5 seconds left. Keep it going. One more repetition. And let it relax. Nicely done. Let's move on to the next. We're going to be doing that reverse lunge with a curl and press again. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. Drop back into that reverse lunge. Those arms come up from that curl motion as you lunge. Then pause down at the bottom. Do that shoulder press motion. Then as those arms come back down, pause that curl motion again, then come back up from that lunge as those arms drop back down. Just do the same thing with that opposite leg back. Just keep switching back and forth. Make sure you're really pausing the bottom. Get that full shoulder press motion before you come back up. Almost done. 5 more seconds. Keep it going. And let it relax. Nicely done. Let's go ahead and move on to our next exercise, the walk down push up with a back bow. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. From a standing position, drop down like you're touching those toes. Walk out with those hands. Do that full push up, flat against the ground. Do a back bow. Back up from that push-up, and then walk those hands back up again. Just keep that motion going over and over again. Keep it as clean as you can. Make sure all those muscles stay contracted. Just 5 seconds left. Keep it going. Nice full back bow. Come back up. And let it relax. Nicely done. Our next exercise is going to be that bent over, reach, and fly. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. Keep that back nice and flat. Drop down as parallel to the ground as you possibly can with those knees almost perfectly straight. Just a tiny, tiny bit of a bend in those knees. Those arms come out to the side, nice tight squeeze out to the side. Drop them back in front of your chest and then bring them straight up in front of those shoulders as high as you can, trying to keep that arm as straight as possible the entire time. Make sure all those muscles stay nice and tight. Almost there. Just 5 seconds left. Keep it going. And let it relax. Nicely done. All right, let's move on to our next one, which is going to be a squat plus a rotation. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. Nice deep squat. As you come up, those arms are going to go out in opposite directions. One's going to stay in front. One stretches back behind you. Then back down to that nice deep squat. Just keep that motion going under control. Keep those lungs open. Keep all those muscles, especially that upper body, really nice and tight the entire time. Just 5 seconds left. Keep that motion going. And let it relax. Nicely done. Let's move on to the next. We're doing that crisscross knee pull. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. With those hands over your head, you're going to bring one knee up really nice and high. Those elbows come down to that knee. Then extend those arms back up over your head as that knee drops. And then the same thing on the opposite side. Just keep alternating back and forth. Keep those core muscles nice and tight and those arm muscles nice and tight. Try to get as much burn out of this as you can. Now we're almost done. Just 5 seconds left. Keep it going. And let it relax. Nicely done. Let's move to the next. We're going to be doing that walk down push up. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. Down to the toes. Walk out for that full plank position. Do that push up. Then walk yourself back up. Come back up to a full standing position before you drop back down again. Just keep that motion going. Try to keep that form as clean as you can. Try to do as many clean push-ups as possible. Remember, if you need to, you can always drop into that half push-up. Almost done. 5 seconds left. Keep that motion going. Come back up. And go ahead and let it relax. Nicely done. Let's move to our next exercise, the toe touch kicks. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. Arms over your head. Arms come down as a leg comes up. Make sure you're keeping that leg nice and straight. Make sure you're keeping those arms nice and straight. Getting a crunch down towards that toe at the same time as keeping that leg as straight as possible. Getting a good stretch on that hamstring. Keep those legs nice and straight. We're almost done. Just 5 seconds left. Keep those arms contracted. Everything to that core nice and contracted. And let it relax. Let's move to our next one, which is going to be a squat and reach. Go ahead and get ready. And start up. Nice deep squat. Come up and reach across away from those feet. Squat back down again, then up across the other side. Now, if you remember from our first round, this is our last exercise of the round, which means this is going to be the last exercise of this routine. So make sure you're pushing through this as hard as you possibly can. Getting a nice deep squat every single time, as well as getting a nice tight contraction on every single one of those muscles to that upper body. Just keep that motion going, pushing as hard as you can until we're done. And 5 seconds left. We're almost done. Keep it going just a little bit longer. And let it relax. Nicely done. That's the end of our cardio portion, which means we have a cool down next. We're doing each one of these cool down stretches for 20 seconds each. Let's go ahead and get started with our first one, which is going to be a wide hamstring stretch. You want those feet about twice shoulder width apart. Stretch your head down between those legs as far as is comfortable. Get a good stretch on that hamstring. You're also going to get a little bit of stretch for that shoulder by bringing those arms back behind you, just letting gravity pull them down towards the ground as much as is comfortable. Just keep holding it, trying to get a little bit more of a stretch the entire time, moving around a little bit to try to find a new stretch. Go ahead and stand back up. We're going to do a quad stretch next. Kick one foot back into your hand. Squeeze that heel to your butt as close as is comfortable. Pull that knee back behind you. You should be feeling the stretch for the front of that thigh, making sure you're also feeling it a little bit into your hip flexor as well. Just keep that chest nice and straight and tall. Just a few more seconds, and we're going to switch sides. Same thing on the other leg. And go ahead and let it switch. Bring that other leg up. Squeeze that heel to your butt. Pull that knee back behind you. Again, trying to feel that stretch to the front of that quadricep, the front of that thigh, and through that hip flexor, the front of that hip. Almost done. And let it relax. We're going to move on to a calf stretch. So leaning up against the wall, that toe up against the wall, shoving those hips forward towards the wall to get a good stretch on that calf. Just hold it there, constantly pushing forward. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So go ahead and switch legs. Bring that other leg up, that toe against the wall, nice and high. Shove that heel down to the ground and press those hips in towards the wall to get that nice tight stretch on that calf. Almost done. And switch off to a wall shoulder stretch. So those hands up against that wall, about shoulder height or higher. Then press that head and chest down towards the base of the wall to get a really good stretch to the underside of that shoulder. You might even feel it into that chest a bit as well. Just hold it there, constantly pressing down towards the base of that wall, trying to breathe as normal as you can, and make sure you keep those arms nice and straight. You've got just a few more seconds. And go ahead and let it relax. Switch to a downward dog, so feet just about hip width apart. Walk those hands out away from you. Try to get a nice straight line from your wrist to your hip, and from your hip down to your ankle, making kind of a triangle position off of the ground. Now, if you need to, if those hamstrings are really, really tight, you can let those knees bend slightly to get a little less pressure on it, but always keep those hamstrings tight, so you're always going to stretch that hamstring, those shoulders, and those calves. Let's go ahead and switch off to that cobra, so flat down against the ground, hands back by the base of your rib cage, press into the ground with those palm of your hand, arch that chest back, look back up towards the ceiling, try to get that chest to arch as much as you possibly can, trying to get a stretch through your abdominal muscles, your hip flexors. You might even feel it again into the front of that quadricep just a little bit, but it's predominantly going to be for those abdominal muscles and hip flexors. And go ahead and let it relax. We're going to move on to the next one, which is a child's pose. Sit back into those heels, hands out in front of you, walking away from you, trying to get a good stretch to that back. Just let everything relax. Got just a few seconds left. And let it relax. Good job.